welcome back to Milk and Honeys. Today we're diving deep with someone whose story goes far beyond the headlines. She's a comedian now, but before she found her voice on stage, she was in the eye of a media storm that shook the sports world and changed her life forever. Jenn Sterger first rose to fame as the so-called FSU Cowgirl, but her journey took an unexpected turn when she became the target of one of the NFL's most notorious scandals. She's the centerpiece of the new Netflix documentary, Untold, The Fall of Farve, which shines a long overdue light on what she went through and what it cost her. Jenn, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's always easier to have these conversations with people you consider friends.
Yes.
You know?
And normally, we do have a lot of lighthearted conversations, again, with comedy.
Oh, we'll still make this lighthearted.
And that's why
I've done enough therapy around it now where I can honestly say, watching the doc come out, it felt like a moment of completion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where I was like, okay, I finally feel like I've said my piece. The truth is out there. Not to get too X-Filesy, but like the truth is out there. And if people just want to ignore the truth, that's on them now. But like I've said what I'm going to say about this. You know what I mean?
Period.
So I think when you have a chance to finally get that closure for yourself, like you can start to make fun of it again, which is honestly what my whole comedy journey has been about.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into that, but I want to kind of rewind all the way back to kind of the beginning of little Jenn.
God.
You know, where you grew up, how you grew up. What
when you guys were in middle school, I was kind of a big deal. No, I'm joking. But for real,
how you're you growing up in an environment kind of shaped your dreams and ambitions. This one, it could have how you knew what you wanted to do when you grew up.
Look, I think I've always wanted to be in entertainment in some capacity, and I was always a really funny kid, but I didn't know like how I was funny. I was just kind of the person that said what everyone else in the room was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sort of fell into this sports niche, you know. I got into sports because I was in marching band and I needed to like learn enough about football to know when we could play because I was in charge of the band. I was the drum major. Like king of the dorks. No, not badass.
I took on clarinet and I got kicked out of the band. So
How did you get kicked out of the band?
You know, if you ever played clarinet and if you blow it wrong,
wow,
it makes that like that duck noise. I couldn't get past the duck noise. So they're like, maybe you just go and cheer.
Yeah, like maybe you should be in color guard. Here's a flag. Go twirl it in the corner.
No instruments for Kayla. Okay.
Oh yeah, but I had to learn sports that way, and then when I went to college, I was a double major. I was a criminology psychology double major because I wanted to work in like forensic psychology or something like that.
Wow.
And
what was the reason for that? Was it like from watching like the cool TV shows growing up?
Of course.
Okay.
And you're like, oh my God, my life is going to be exactly like all these women and like Silence of the Lambs and all that shit. And it's like, no, Jenn, you're just going to work with really fucked up people.
Yep.
And now you're in comedy and you work with really fucked up people. Honestly, I think that my psychology degree also was just a way of, I've always been fascinated with how humans work.
Mm-hmm.
And I never felt like I was really understood in my life. And I didn't understand the people around me. So I felt like, hey, if I study this, maybe I'll figure some stuff out. I still have not. But I do think that my degrees really helped me out now because it really helps me understand audiences and like how to connect with people. Yeah. But yeah, I was in college and I was dating this guy and he was a sports management major and he was like, if you help me with my homework, we can hang out. And I was like, okay. so I helped him.
College girl.
So I helped him with his homework and it was making a football playbook. And so I basically played a bunch of NCAA football video games.
Stop.
And I taught myself football.
Wow.
And taught myself sports. And I was like, oh, when you know about sports, dudes like you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, and I wasn't trying to be a pick me. I was just trying to have someone pick me. You know, like I just wanted to date somebody. And yeah, that really, sports was just a way of connection. It was also a way of connection with my dad back in the day. You know, because like, if you have a dad that always wanted a son and you're the firstborn, odds are you are the son. You know what I mean? Like you're going
Whether
to be
you want
raised
it or
as the
not.
son. We're like, she's going to be good at softball. You know?
He's going to get you that mitt and be like, come on, let's go play some catch. You're like,
Yeah.
okay.
I was like, nope, I'm at piano recitals. He was like, son of a bitch. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into sports. Was I just had this, this background in wanting to connect with people with them.
I love that. You first came into the national spotlight during your time at Florida State University. What was it like to suddenly become FSU Cowgirl famous, practically, literally overnight?
It was surreal. It was very surreal.
It's like Pam Anderson, like
It's
what happened to Pam.
exactly like Pam Anderson. And I bring that up all the time. But yeah, it was interesting because this was a time back when message boards were a big thing.
Mhm.
And it was like the beginning of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't nod like you were there. You were too young.
Oh,
No.
Listen,
You
we
guys were in
had
the AOL chat rooms. I
we
was in
had-
the wild.
Okay,
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah,
We did
that's
have
true.
AOL.
I did have AOL.
Listen, we interviewed a girl who's about 15 years younger than us, and she was always raised with the internet. So it's funny to see the difference.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you're right. We're
I
much younger.
I definitely was grounded a few times for being in chats I probably shouldn't have been to. Sorry, mom and dad.
He's like, you're gonna end up on How to Catch a Predator. What are you
I
doing?
wish, Dad.
but yeah, it was so surreal because I saw all my pictures on these message boards, and the things people would say about me were like, she doesn't even go here. And like one guy said that I think she's a stripper that's just pretending to be a student. And I was like, I wish I made that much money. But yeah, I got on these message boards to like defend myself. And it's like I gave her a voice.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm more than just a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And then like I guess a month after I got discovered, or a month and a half after I got discovered, Playboy was doing castings for the Top 10 Party Schools edition at Florida State. And so they found me. And then the week after I shot Playboy, Maxim called and they were like,
That's great. And
Yeah.
how old were you at this time?
I'm like 22.
Like, what the hell does a
That's
22-year-old know how to like handle all of this?
amazing.
Like,
we don't. That's
No.
the problem.
I remember back. This is so embarrassing, but you remember back when, like, on Craigslist or whatever, you'd find castings for like someone looking for like a model they can take photos
Yes.
of, and I fell victim to that because I was like, I want to be a model. So then you respond to these Craigslist ads and you end up in some weird dude's basement.
Yeah.
But like, you're actually getting these legitimate publications reaching out to you.
And that's the thing is like people will be like, do you regret doing Playboy? And sometimes I do, but like I realize, you can't say I wish I wouldn't have done that, because if you don't do any of the things that you did to get you to where you are,
Mhm.
it's like, where do you don't end up in the same place you do.
Absolutely.
Right.
But like back at the time, Playboy was considered to be like, you were being as validated as possible of being a beautiful woman.
Mhm.
Yes.
And so I saw this as like, I had never seen myself as being beautiful, like conventionally pretty. And I had just gone through a gnarly breakup and I was like, wait till he sees me in this.
He's
You're like,
going to
oh, you
regret
left this? I'm in
everything.
Playboy. Okay.
Exactly. And look, 22-year-old me really needed that validation. 42-year-old me is like, no, girl, we're good. But yeah, it was a very surreal thing how fast everything happened.
Mhm.
And then I ended up getting a job at Sports Illustrated. So
Well, and then we're, you also sports journalism and hosting came out of all of that.
yeah.
How do you think all that influenced that? Is that something that you had thought about doing before?
No. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of just rode the wave with this.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it was such a lightning in the bottle experience, and I just took every situation as it came to me and every opportunity as it came to me, and was like, does this propel me forward without compromising my morals?
Mhm.
Because I did experience backlash from doing the Playboy thing. I had this one meeting at ESPN for a gig, and the guy I met with at like this really nice restaurant in New York, he put my Playboy in the middle of a table. And he goes, do you think this is appropriate?
Do you think what you're doing is appropriate?
Exactly.
And I said, you putting my magazine
Yeah.
with me naked in the middle of a public space? No, I don't think it's appropriate.
You said that?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah, girl,
The audacity.
I've never been the type that's ever backed down until the Favre thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it was because I experienced so much quiet backlash for standing up for myself at ESPN that I think when it happened again, I was just like, oh, I must be the problem. You know what I mean? And like, it really tapped into some deeper stuff for me.
Well, we're gonna get into that with the Favre stuff. You know, you saw everything kind of shift because of the scandal. And I know to this day that's such a defining chapter in your story and completely took your life in a different direction. But you know, people who have seen the Favre documentary got to hear from you. Loved hearing, you know, you and I have never sat and talked about it in that, you know,
No.
magnitude. I'm so happy I got to, I know she watched it as well, but in your own words, and you know, things that maybe didn't make it into the documentary for whatever reason, you know, what the hell, what happened?
I think the main thing that I want to drill home that I don't know if it was covered enough in the documentary is that it wasn't about receiving pictures from somebody that was the violation. It was the discrepancy in power dynamics that the real and if you've ever been in a situation where someone is above you in stature in the workplace or in some kind of social dynamic where they can have a direct impact on your future, you will understand the fear that comes with that. It's not, people are like, it's just, you know, it's just a picture. It's not just a picture. That picture represents a real injustice of power. And I knew that I wasn't worth anything to the NFL. I wasn't worth anything to the Jets. I was just a freelancer. I was just an independent contractor. And when you're an independent contractor, companies are under no like
they have no
obligation to defend you or protect you. Yeah.
Even if you are, they don't.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, I tell this to people all the time because obviously my DMs have been just full of men and women that have experienced stuff like this in the workplace or in their lives. And I just say, like, at the end of the day, if I can give anyone advice, it's just that HR is not there to protect you.
No, it's to protect them.
You have to protect you. HR is there to protect the company and their investment. And if you do anything to get in, like, in the way of them making money and them making profit because you're feeling like you need to stand up for yourself, like, you're immediately the problem.
Absolutely.
So I always tell people that come to me, like, what are some things that I can do? It's like, well, document everything. Document everything.
Keep a paper trail.
And that's the thing is some people were like, well, why did you keep them? And I'm like, to document what happened to me.
Yes.
Why would people ever question why?
It's very weird. I had a situation in high school one time, and it led to a restraining order to another person. And my sister, this is when like MySpace was around, right? So my sister, who is 9 years older than I am, knew what was going on and knew what was being said, like death threats, egging my parents' house, like things like that. And she printed out everything that was said on MySpace, put it in a binder, and when we went to court, just handed the judge the binder. The judge opened it, flipped through like maybe 2 pages and said, I don't even need to hear anything else. You get your restraining order.
Yeah.
Like it's, and if we didn't have that, we would have had to been
said,
going
she
back
said,
and forth. But yeah, that's why you document and you take things in and you print them and you put them away. Or obviously now we have our phones, but you know, back then we didn't. So we'd print everything and just.
Yeah, if anybody's ever trying to get you on the phone instead of putting it in text,
I've learned that.
Nope.
Absolutely
this
not.
needs to be in writing.
And you still have everything currently?
God, I think it's like I have it in storage, like in a safety deposit box, and it's like 15 or 17 binders of stuff, because it wasn't when I had to hand over all my text and my communications to the NFL, they wanted everything, not just the stuff that applied to this. Like it was a total invasion of privacy. Like it's every social media message, it's every text, we didn't have WhatsApp at the time, every email, every phone call log. Like they wanted access to a very painful time in my life, because I was not just dealing with the stuff at the Jets, I was dealing with getting out of a very abusive relationship and having to go back and like reread
Relive
all
it.
those texts with NFL investigators was just such a violating experience, for lack of a better word. And especially when like you're just sitting there with men that are like, well, prove you're not the problem. And I finally, in true Jenn form, at some point during the NFL investigation, I finally was like, hey, if you're going to keep talking to me like I'm the issue, I'm going to get up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave. And I said, and then it's just going to be 3 dudes sitting around looking at a picture of another dude's dick.
Right. Have fun.
I was like, I'm gonna step
Have
out
fun
for
with
a
that.
minute. I'm gonna step out for a minute.
Spitfire Jenn.
I'm gonna step out for a minute, and I'm like, I'll let you guys figure out what you want to do and how you want this to proceed. But I'm like, this is not how it's gonna go.
Yep.
And when I came back in, they were much different. But again, it's just
They probably expect you to fold because a lot of women, especially at that age, put in that position, do fold because of fear.
They get scared.
Well, because we've been programmed to be nice.
Of course, and
And
just
listen,
be agreeable.
Don't cause problems. Just, nod your head yes.
Being a nice girl has gotten me nowhere, but in trouble. I'm a good person. You can be a good person and not be a nice person. A nice person lets people walk all over them and doesn't have boundaries. A good person is like, I have boundaries, but I'm good to people. And that's who I want to be, you know? And there were just these glimmers of it during the whole investigation where I'm like, where I finally would just give up being the nice girl and I would finally stand up for myself. And like, those are the moments where I look back and I'm like, I'm proud of myself for doing that.
Right.
Because being a nice girl wasn't going to get me anywhere.
How did the Netflix documentary come into play?
Oh, girl, I got approached by like 10 different, I lost count after a while, but it was at least 10 different people and production companies at some point or another pitched this project to me.
Wow.
One of them was like a former producer for Mr. Beast, and I was like, yeah, no. You know what I mean? Where you're like, what are you gonna do? Like lock us in a
it's gonna be a game.
You're gonna lock us in an abandoned plane, and they're like, get it, Jets, and we'll put her and Brett Farve in the plane, and then have them do like. I was like, no, like it had to be the right person.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? It had to be the right person that I knew was going to actually tell my story this time, because I can't tell you how many times over the past decade journalists have been like, don't worry, I'm going to tell your story. And it's like, no, they're going to tell the story that services whatever their agenda is and not your story.
Yep.
And I think Netflix is the closest thing. I don't think it's my entire story, but I think it's the closest thing I've had to getting my whole story out there. And hats off to Netflix, because like I actually had to do a reshoot with them because they saw that the dailies and the edits from the first interview that I had with them, where I sat for like 6 hours, and they were like, this girl is so compelling and so truthful and like so just brutally honest, and like she's the biggest piece of evidence you have against this man, and like honestly was the canary in the coal mine, you know? And we ignored her. Like she warned us who this person was, and we ignored her. And so Netflix was like, we really want to do another shoot with her where we show people that she's a credible witness, and that she was just a girl trying to do her job. And so they came back and they did a second round of shoots with me. And that's where they really brought in some of my backstories so that people understood who I was, because I think up until then, I was just a picture to people, you know? And when you're just a 2D figure, or I'm sure you can even relate to this, Kayla, from like working for a bigger entity, your image is so controlled that like that's all people know of you. So then when you're like, no, I'm actually this 3D person, this 4D person that's out here living in the real world, people are like, you know, it doesn't necessarily jive with their beliefs of you.
When those private messages became public, how did that affect you professionally and personally?
I think
was
about,
it the
especially the
same?
professional side, I really think about, and I fucking like, it breaks my heart thinking about it, because I mean, working in a place like WWE as a woman, how quickly you can be covered up and pushed aside, and everything you work for, they don't use you anymore because you didn't do exactly what they said. And I just can't imagine, especially the trajectory you were on with your career, being an on-air personality, do you feel like you lost everything in that regard because of this?
You know, one of the things that really stuck with me is how my situation affected others.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had my own television show at the time on NBC Sports / it was called Versus at the time, but I had my own TV show that I was on a panel of, and the scandal broke at the beginning of October, and by the end of October our show got canceled.
Oh God.
And so not only was I out of work, but like everyone was out of work, and I had this like deep burden that I had cost all of these people their jobs. And it's not that, and the thing is I wanted to talk. Like I wanted to clear my name, and I was not allowed to. I asked my network. I was like, hey, I'll sit down and have an interview with you guys.
Yeah.
I don't care. I have nothing to hide from you guys. And no one would let me speak. And so instead I was like relegated to this side table, this like Tony Reale-esque position where I was just a peripheral character instead of being on the main desk with like my coworkers.
Yeah.
And that was like kind of their way of phasing me out, you know?
That's what these
crazy.
I'm getting so mad. And going back to you talking about just how, you know, dehumanizing it is and how much they dehumanized you. Just if people don't know what that feels like, can you expand a little bit more what that feels like for a person?
I really felt it when I finally was exposed to, look, this is like back in Twitter's heyday, you know, and you were just not ready for that many people's opinions of you to be shouted at you at full volume, and especially with limited facts. So people are just going off. Like when you watch the documentary, they show how terribly the media covered it, and they were like, what's her point in coming out with this now? And it's like, I didn't come out with this. I was thrust out with this.
That was frustrating for me to watch from your perspective. It's like, people are like, why is she just trying to like get clout,
trying to get money,
attention?
She's trying to get attention. And it's like, no.
You were exposed. You trusted somebody and they fucked you over.
Yep.
And look, that's the part of this that I take full accountability for.
Trusting?
I
trusting
trusted
the wrong person.
But how could you have
the wrong
known?
person? Look, AJ wasn't a model citizen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'd actually had people be like, yo, I don't know why you're working with him. He's dangerous. And it's just kind of like, I don't know. I look at it kind of like the you know, like the whole tale of like the scorpion and the toad, where like the scorpion's like, hey, I really need to get across this river.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the toad's like, bro, you're going to sting me.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I promise.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
And then you get halfway across the river and you're like, fuck, bro, why'd you sting me? That's what, I'm sure that's exactly how it was written, Jill.
For sure.
You should rewrite that story in Jenn's voice.
My Fables book is going to slap. But yeah, it was very much that, you know, where it's just like, I was warned that he wasn't a good person. And in my eyes, when I talked to AJ about it, it honestly felt validating, because I was like, oh, this is the first time I'm being believed. Because up until then I had like told people what was happening, and they would just say to me, if you want to keep your job, be quiet. If you want to keep your job, be quiet. And this was the first time someone was like, hey, you know what happened to you was wrong?
Right.
Oh, what a slime.
And it was just the wrong person.
Yes. How did you expect the NFL to react, even though, and I know, or respond, and how did their response actually impact you?
Or there's a difference in what you expected,
You know,
versus
'cause
what actually. Did you expect
you-
them?
you
Did you expect them to
expect-
protect you at all, or did you know? Like,
Because I would,
It's not that I
I
expected
guess,
them
at
to
that
protect
time.
me.
yes, you expect.
You
or
expect
hope,
your job,
You hope for the
or
best.
you hope your job to hear you and understand what's going
They
on,
find
and
you
want
important.
to protect you. And you're not an NFL player, but you were an important asset to the NFL at the time.
Here's the thing. With that, I have this character flaw where I hope for the best in people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where I'm like, even though I know they're not like, I just, even though they're not like, they're not perfect beings, I still hope for the best in people. I hope that people are going to do the right thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say the right thing, it's not like the right thing for business. It's like the morally right thing
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, hey, like protect the vulnerable,
Right.
you know, like do the right thing. And I should have known better because like, and that's one of the reasons why when I see them like pushing out all the breast cancer stuff and I see them pushing out all the pink jerseys and I'm like, they so desperately want the support and the money
Yeah.
from women, from female fans. And the fact of the matter is, they've shown us time and time again that they don't give a shit about what happens.
Mhm.
It's yeah.
It's just they don't care.
No.
They do know.
And so that's when I'm like, hey, this is one of those times where I'm like, if women want to make a difference, we got to put our money where our mouth is and
Yeah.
not support these type of things.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I haven't really watched a ton of football since I went
then?
through this, you know?
Mm.
And that sucks
Understandably.
because like I love football. I watch college football a little bit more because and look, people can get mad about that because like, you know, the whole NIL and like athletes being compensated and now it's not as pure of a game now, but it's like, yeah, but those kids were also being taken advantage of by a
Right.
shitty system.
Right.
You know? And I didn't even ask you if we're allowed to cuss on the show, so I'm sorry.
Oh, it's yeah,
No, you're good.
I've said fuck like 5 times.
Yeah.
But like college football, you know, back in the day, like people used to be like, I like college football because it's so much more pure. And it's like, no, that's like where we're establishing the rules
Mhm.
of how they're supposed to act when they make it.
Right.
And I do feel like we have to start holding people that want to be viewed as heroes to higher standards.
Yes.
Okay,
You
and,
know what I mean?
and that's what I want to get into. That's a perfect
Yes.
segue to my question about freaking Brett Farve, who was hailed as a hero for how many freaking decades.
Yeah.
And even after this documentary and beyond the stuff that he did to you, the other stuff he, you know, scandalous shit that he's done, why do you, and people still refuse to see him as the person that he is, even after giving all the facts, all the examples of the shit that he's done. Why do you think that some people like him can still get away with being a terrible human being? Is it because people still see them as, this is a hero? Like there's people in WWE who have done some really messed up things, but some people refuse to see it because that is their hero. While people like you face the consequences of doing nothing wrong.
I think people have a really hard time holding the idea that two things can be true at once.
Yeah.
Mm.
And we tell ourselves stories about athletes and about, you know, celebrities that are important to us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like Brett Favre to someone could be a favorite memory that they have with their dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or
Right.
like the people of Green Bay that like, they show it. Like Green Bay was like a place you sent athletes to be punished. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't considered a winning
Yeah.
town anymore.
Mhm.
It was kind of considered like a banishment, you know? And he gave the people of Green Bay, which by the way is I think the only team that is actually owned by the people.
Mm.
Like they own the majority of the team. The team doesn't
Got
have
it.
a quote unquote like
Oh, so that
owner.
adds another layer
And
to
so
it.
it's like we're invested in
Yeah.
this. The town is invested in this, you know? And so I think he just represents something to them that's like so much bigger than him as a person.
Mhm.
And so to have to like reconcile like, oh, this thing that I've placed on this pedestal is not necessarily the person I thought they were. They just can't, their brain just can't hold those two truths at the same
Right.
time, you know?
Right.
That makes
they have to
sense,
pick.
but
They have to
oof.
pick one or the other.
Like I literally just got a DM from somebody like right before I walked in here. And I had called the guy out. Cause he goes, "You're disgusting talking shit about someone who has Parkinson's."
Oh my God.
And I wrote back, I said,
Oh,
"You know
please tell
what's
me.
disgusting? Stealing welfare money than saying they shouldn't have let me steal it."
High five.
Oh my gosh.
I love you.
And he wrote me back and he says, I wanted to apologize to you. I was just frustrated because he was my hero when I was a kid. And you didn't deserve how I spoke to you. And you didn't deserve any of this. And I hope you can forgive me. And I will try to be a better person moving forward.
Wow.
Wow, that never happens. That's amazing that like he actually at least.
He probably didn't expect you to see it, didn't expect you to respond to it.
My favorite thing to do to trolls is to go, what were you trying to, it's to get curious. I go, what were you trying to accomplish by saying something that disgusting to a stranger?
But you have no idea who they are.
What were you trying to accomplish? Get curious.
Yeah.
Don't get combative. Get curious and be like,
smart.
What's the end goal here for you? You know? Because so often it's because you're triggering something in them.
Right.
And when you ask them, hey, what's that about? They go, I don't know.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh, it's about some shit that I have unresolved with something that happened to me and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I love being that pivotal moment in someone's life.
That's true.
Where you're like, hey, I'm going to force you to go inward and look at some stuff at yourself that you don't like right now.
Yep. You probably changed that family dinner for the week. You
Literally.
They're going to have some new things to contribute.
His wife's like, why is he being so nice to me?
What
just
have your
kidding.
DMs
He lives
been
with
like?
his mom for sure.
Since the documentary came out, have you gotten more positive, negative? Like, what's it been like?
You know, it's been like 30 or 40 to 1 positive.
Oh, good.
Great.
Which is
That's
the complete opposite of what I experienced before. And I think that that's like one of the things where, like I said, I really wish it was drilled home more in the doc is the way the media covered this was egregious. And it was so blatantly negligent. And their silence right now in not talking about this documentary speaks volumes because they don't want to look at the part they played in this.
So that's what's, and then when I text you after, like that's what's kind of happening, right? Like they're not really touching it. It's just like it happened and then.
Yeah. And look, people need to understand that when something happens with the NFL that the NFL does not want talked about.
Of course.
The NFL is like, hey, you can talk about this, but you know, we might not have as many media passes and we may not have, you know, some TV rights negotiations might not be as easy. And so they know they have this product that everyone wants and they have this leverage. But again, if people are sitting at home going, well, how do we change this? And it's like, vote with your money. Vote with your money. Say what, like, support the things that you're about. Like, support the injustices by saying no with your dollar and see how fast. The only reason, like, they ever did anything about, like, the Ray Rice thing is because there was video.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. None of my stuff was ever released to the public. And so with Netflix, I was like, here's the proof.
Yeah. I have it.
After all of these years of just being not believed.
Yeah.
You know,
you got to keep that notebook of receipts.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, the message that we can both gain from this is why are you on MySpace? Right. You know what I mean?
Right. Like
nothing good happens on MySpace.
Nothing good. Okay. We top 12, top 6, top 8.
We
like,
were
this
brutal.
Is trauma. This is why we have trauma.
We're all like,
we were brutal. We something would happen at school and we would go home and we'd be like, Becky's not in my top 8 anymore. Like,
I always knew when someone was on a breakup because their away message was like some poem and they're like, oh, Tommy and Jen broke up today. You know, it's like it was that the mental of it all, you know, was insane. I mean, what impact do you think that experience had for you when it came to both that time and those years since? And
mental
also,
health
like,
had to be in there.
How do you continue to heal from that? Because I know healing is it's a non-ending journey, right? We're always going to continue to heal. We're always going to have those moments that pop up of trauma. And how do you work through those? Because
honestly, I think a big part of healing is bringing awareness to when you are triggered and going, what does that triggered part of me need to hear right now to get this to go away? Like, what am I needing right now in this moment to not feel this feeling?
Yes.
Because avoiding it is not the option.
No.
You know, like
You
numbing
can't.
with any kind of substance is not an option. Like if you are one of those people, and I've unfortunately dealt with a lot of these type of people in my life where I've seen them go through something really bad and they will try to numb out with substances. And it's like, you're just stuffing that feeling for a later date to come out somewhere else.
Right.
And honestly, it might be directed at somebody that you don't want it to be directed at because you can't control when they come up. But so much of healing is just bringing awareness to like, whatever's happening to me right now, how does that feel in my body? And then asking, like I said, like that part of you that's like getting activated right now, it's like getting curious. I think so much of our healing is just like, hey, stay curious. Whether it's healing with another person instead of being confrontational.
Right.
It's like, why are you doing that? You know, like it's completely changed the way I work in relationship. You know, when I see the other person get like evasive about something where before I'd have been like, hey, like, no.
Yeah.
You know, and be like, what are you hiding? It's like, hey, what's this?
Right.
And, you know, one time I asked a guy that, and instead of like getting defensive, he goes, oh my God. He goes, thank you for bringing that to my attention. He goes, I didn't even realize that I was like doing this dance with you and like basically expecting you to react like an ex of mine reacted. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, it's just getting curious and staying curious, not only with yourself, but with another person, you know?
I got to work on that because I'm super reactive.
But you know what? Being angry is okay because what happens is sometimes when you go through something super traumatic, you forget or you like lose your capability of being angry. And that's when shit gets really bad because instead it's just like, that's the kind of stuff that like sits in your body and causes like autoimmune disease and things like that.
Cancer.
Yeah. Because
does.
you're literally squashing these terrible feelings into your body and being like, I'm not allowed to be angry. And so one of the things that I've like learned in my healing is being like, hey, Jen, it's allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be angry over what happened to you.
Yeah.
But you have to find a way to make it productive anger versus just lashing out. Yeah, it's totally different.
Oh, we see you killing it in comedy now. You're so good. You're so funny. You're very talented.
Thank you.
But I want to go back to, you know, talking about the fact back then you had your own talk show on NBC Sports and all that was taken away from you. How do you think your life and career would look right now if all of that hadn't have happened?
You know, it would probably look different, but I truly think all of this happened to get me where I'm supposed to be because the thing I love about comedy is there's no HR.
If there was, comedy would die.
I was gonna say,
there's no HR.
was.
But when I say that, I mean, one of the things I respect about comedy is it's almost like we police each other. Where it's like, hey, we're all crabs in this bucket, dude. You know what I mean? We can actually get out of this bucket if we work together. But if you want to keep pulling each other down, you know what I mean? Comedy, like working in comedy is kind of like working on a pirate ship where we're like, if we're all working together and we'll keep each other honest.
Absolutely.
And we'll throw the bad ones off, you know? And I think this is where I was always supposed to be because it's kind of choose your own adventure. And I don't like, I'm really proud of all the different platforms and like avenues I've helped build. And they're all to give women a chance to tell their stories because sports and comedy are one and the same in terms that they're tough places for women to exist.
Very male dominated.
They're tough spaces for women to exist. And more than anything, I wanted to show women in comedy that there's enough space for all of us, you know, because I think in sports, in wrestling, definitely in wrestling, women are just taught that we're each other's competition.
Right.
And in comedy, I was like, it doesn't have to be this way. And so like, I try to lead by example in the comedy community out here and being like, I'm going to lift as many of these women up with me as possible. Like rising tide stuff. Like there's women that are like, I'm a girl's girl. And it's like, no, walk the walk of being a girl's girl. A true girl's girl doesn't pull this shit.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
And again, I get curious about it when I see a girl acting up. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
What's going
I've actually
on?
told a girl that like was doing some really shady stuff to another girl. I was like, hey, or like she lashed out at me even one time. And I was like, hey, what is that? I was like, we're not going to solve it right now. And I go, but I'm working with like a bunch of other people right here. And I go, you should probably go somewhere and like regulate and then come back when you're ready to talk to me.
Yeah, take 3
And I was like, because I'm not
breaths.
dealing with whatever this is, because I know it's not like, this is meant for somebody else that's not in this room.
Yeah.
Sis. I was like, take it somewhere else and bring it back here, you know?
Absolutely.
I hope I explained that well enough.
No,
But
No,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, do you think that the, sports and entertainment industries have improved when it comes to handling harassment, or do you think it's the same old story?
I think it's the same old story. I
Which
think
is
it's
so
the same old
unfortunate.
story. And I think they try to put lipstick on it by going, but look, we have women in positions of power.
Right.
And they're gonna make sure that things are done right around here for other women. And it's like, no, those are the pick-me's.
That's funny to watch.
those
It's
are
so
the
funny to watch
pick-me's.
up close too, because it's so transparent.
Yes,
You see
those
it
are
every
the
time.
pick-me's. Pick-me's exist in
And then the moment
professional
those
things.
women do try to help us out, all of a sudden they're no longer in office.
Right?
Right.
So weird how that happens.
The ones that I know in a situation, the one that was always snitching on everybody, making sure other people got in trouble, always going to the boss. Now she's the boss.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Isn't that
She
amazing how
gets
that
it.
happens?
Yeah.
It's like, y'all think
And
we're stupid?
now she's the head honcho. The other boss is retired.
She probably
and now
hates her
she's-
life, goes home,
she's on
pops a bunch
there.
of pills, and chugs it with some vodka, and goes to bed
Man,
hating
Kayla,
herself.
I feel like we're tapping into some
Okay,
shit.
let me readjust myself real quick. Okay,
man.
I want to get back into comedy. I don't know when that transition happened. Like, I feel like a lot of funny people. I mean, I think I'm kind of funny, but myself included. It stems from trauma.
Yeah.
I know that's like growing up the way I grew up. All my siblings are really funny because that's just how we coped as kids.
Yeah.
Would you say, I mean, were you always into comedy, or did this kind of, trickle into?
Oh no, I've always been into comedy.
I mean, you said you were a funny kid.
And there was
but-
even comedy within my sports, and that's what I used to get in trouble for all the time.
Really?
Like I got written up all the time at jobs because sports has this weird thing where they're like, we're serious. And I'm like, you're a game. Like we need to be honest about what this is.
Exactly.
And that's why, honestly, that's why I think Barstool's had so much success, is because they don't take themselves too seriously.
Right.
And they're fun. They
Yeah.
just feel like, whether you agree with like all of their principles or not, they're still dudes that like you'd sit at a bar with and have a good
Right.
time. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is I feel like sports have just always taken themselves too seriously. And so when people are like, would you go back to sports? And it's like, that's like asking me if I'd go back to my most abusive boyfriend.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm like, no.
Yeah, absolutely not.
She's grown.
What's been the most rewarding part of performing stand up?
It's a really great way to process things that I am dealing with in a way that creates connection with an audience. You know? Like for the longest time, I did not talk about the Farve stuff on stage because it just felt like it was so unrelatable. You know what I mean? And stand-up's all about relation and connection. And I was just like, there's no way anyone will ever be able to sympathize or relate to what I went through. And with the documentary coming out, my DMs have shown me otherwise, where I'm like, oh, this meant a lot to a lot of people, not just me. Like it meant a lot to other people to see someone that was going through something similar finally get the chance to tell their story. And so for me, stand-up is just a way of doing that also involves comedy, because comedy is so healing. Like being able to laugh, being able to finally laugh about something is so healing.
So healing.
You know? And I finally started talking about the Farve stuff in the past couple of weeks, but I've been just quietly writing it, but I finally been putting it on stage. And one of the things that I tackle when I talk about it on stage is the concept of the number of women that stepped on my neck to get what they wanted when the most terrible thing happened to me, where they saw my downfall as a chance,
as an
to
opportunity,
step over me.
Ooh, I know a few of those too.
To step over me and
Don't we
claim
all?
it. And so I'm using my voice on stage to, again, remind people that like, you don't have to do that, you know? And again, just call out the injustices, but do it in a way that's funny and poignant. You know, I think the people that are the best at comedy are the ones that are willing to say what everyone else in the room has like thought or felt, but never had the balls to say because it might not be the popular opinion.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Have you had any of those people who stepped on your neck or were terrible to you when all this was happening and didn't believe you and were on your side and now see everything come to light and reached out and be like, hey, I'm really sorry? No.
But you know what? I don't need them to.
Of course you don't.
You don't need them to. And here's the thing, Kayla, it says so much more that they haven't done the work on themselves to know that they were in the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
And the only time anyone ever makes an apology is when you like, if the only time someone apologizes when you publicly hold them over the coals, that's not an apology.
No.
That's saving face.
That's saving
Do you know what I
face.
mean? So I'm like,
I do.
I mean, I think you'd rather get like a call like, Jen, hey.
yeah.
Even a
Listen.
text.
Or just something just
Not
like, hey.
on- not over a social
someone
platform.
who posts like, I just saw, like that's obviously
Yeah.
for their own personal gain. Like,
Yep.
look at me. I've grown so much. Also, clout.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Who wants clout from this? This is not fun.
but people will use it. People will
Mhm.
use it.
Oh,
People
I know.
love to use it. You know, people love taking someone else's story and
My
making it
ex-
about themselves.
My ex-boyfriend that I was dating at the time when all the Favre stuff actually happened, the one that was like the really messed up relationship, he like went on his show and he was like, yeah, we lived this. And I was like,
We? Bitch, where?
We?
What?
I was like, last I checked, you were cheating on me with Brooke Hogan. Like,
I
no.
can
That's when you know my life comes full circle. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Where you're just like, Brooke Hogan. You know?
God,
And then you end up
people.
working in wrestling later and you're like, wow, all these 6 degrees of
I know.
wow.
What do they call it? The invincible string theory, but actually not in the romantic
yep.
sense.
No. But I just thought it was so crazy that like the people that took I can always tell when someone like, because they'll make the story about like, oh yeah, I remember that this happened because I was doing this. And it's like,
Right.
you weren't like this
There.
did not impact your life.
No.
Like you went on and nothing happened to you.
Exactly.
This brought my life to a screeching halt and I had to rebuild everything. And it's crazy because now I think people are way less likely to underestimate me because I'm like, I think the most dangerous woman is the one with nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I've built my career now where people can't take it from me
Mm-hmm.
because, and that's what you have to do.
Yep.
You know, I think so many people when they work for like bigger companies, like, you know, these networks and entertainment companies, they think that they get accustomed to like getting their role handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't realize like when you leave, it's like you're going to have to create a whole life for yourself, but it's going to be a grind.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be willing to put that work in and create those avenues for yourself to get seen, to get noticed. And then opportunities can come to you.
Yep.
But I feel like there's something so much more powerful about maintaining your own like flexibility, I guess is
Mhm.
like a good way, or like being able to like pick and choose what opportunities work for you because you're your own boss.
Right.
Like that's just so much more fulfilling to me.
Amen.
Right. Absolutely. Which
Do you think there's any? I mean, I know you haven't spoken to Favre,
Never.
ever, but I just wonder if there's just out of my own curiosity, any feedback that he's that's going to trickle down to you of what he thought about, because he probably thought this was going to go away. This has been many years since all
and
this
never
happened,
come out
and then
ever
bam,
again.
Netflix documentary.
And
I
we're
know.
talking Netflix. We're not. It's not.
We're not talking about
I
Mr. Beast
know.
producer
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
I know there was an email that was sent that was like, I can't believe you guys are making this. And if so-and-so was in charge, this would have never happened. And it's like, yeah, buddy, guess what? So-and-so's not in charge anymore.
Right.
And this is called accountability.
Exactly.
This is called
Exactly.
your
accountability.
time
This
to
is-
take it.
Yeah.
People can go through
Step
life
up.
and just
Yep.
And that's what I'm hopefully we're going to see more in just the world overall, in business, in
Yeah.
sports, in corporations. Accountability. Get some t-shirts printed up right now.
The really cool
Literally.
thing is if you sit back long enough, I really feel like these type of people, the ones that like take advantage of systems of power, eventually they start to eat each other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like that scene in Mean Girls where like Regina George throws all of her papers
Yeah.
up into the sky, where you just sit there and you watch them, like they'll eat themselves.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Look what's happening in WWE right now. The
It's-
people who are at the top who are they're all eating each other.
Oh, I haven't.
I don't
been
think I'm
paying
allowed to
atten-
talk. I think I signed something where I can't talk about publicly.
But you know,
But go to Twitter and
Yes.
you will see what's happening.
it's public.
Right now.
It is public.
You know, but that's the thing is, and I think one of the things that I again, when I worked in wrestling, I think the thing that becomes abundantly clear to you is like that independent contractor status is just such a tightrope
Mhm.
because, and I'm one of those people that in any industry I've worked in, because like it's not just sports and it's not just wrestling and it's not just entertainment. If you're going to call me an independent contractor and you're not going to give me the rights of someone that works for this company, like an employee status where you're going to help me pay for my health care, you're going to take care of me, et cetera, you're going to help me plan my retirement.
Mhm.
If you're not going to give me any of those three things, you don't fucking own me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that that's something like I really wish, and it's going to take, again, it's going to take people not being scabs, but it's going to like to create a union for these type of things. But I really do think that it's going to be this one day where people look at all of the people that used to wrestle that can barely move or that end up losing their lives because they get addicted to pain
Absolutely.
pills. Like it's going to take them going, we don't want to end up like that. And we want to make
Right.
sure the people coming up behind us don't want to end up like that. And we have to do something. And the only reason that hasn't happened so far is because there's always someone that's willing to go, well, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Well, I'll do it.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Yep.
those are the people that are screwing it up for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if everyone said no,
No.
again, it's like vote with your money.
Mhm.
Vote with your money, band together. There's safety in numbers. Like
Absolutely.
I truly believe in that stuff when it comes to being an independent contractor.
we can
Absolutely.
hope for those things.
What message do you want to send to other women who have experienced harassment, especially in a male-dominated industries like sports and entertainment? Like what's something that you want to leave for them?
That what happened to them mattered. That their stories matter. There was a pivotal moment during the Favre stuff that like now I look back and I go, oh, that moment was much bigger than I gave it significance for at the time. And I got approached with like a lot of different business stuff when the Favre thing was happening because everybody was like, will she talk? Will she not talk? You know? But I got approached by Norm Macdonald, you know, a comedian, legend, Norm Macdonald, because he had a sports show at the time on Comedy Central. And he was like, hey, I want to do this sketch about old dudes trying to text younger women and just how bad we are at it. And he pitched me this delightfully Norm idea. Like, you know, that was just so like Norm Macdonald in its tone, quirky and dark and, you know. But at the time, when I took it to my management team and my lawyers, they were like, you can't do this. If you do this, no one will take you seriously as a victim. And I was like, they already don't.
Yeah.
But I went back to Norm and I was like, hey, they're saying no. I'm really sorry because this is something like you've been an idol of mine for a long time. And, you know, like I'm just honored to even be able to have a conversation with you. And he said, Jen, you know, I understand entirely like your team's position on this, but he goes, but I feel for you, kid. He goes, you're in a real shit situation right now. He's like, but if I can give you any advice, he goes, the sooner you can own this and make something from it.
Yep.
No one will be able to hurt you with it anymore. He goes, and that's when you take your story back. And I truly think like when I think back on like pivotal moments, it was that conversation that was like, oh, it really lit the path to comedy for me. It lit the path to comedy for me. It showed me that like, that was the one place I was going to be able to tell my story in its entirety and all the pieces that affected me, where it wasn't just about being a victim. It was about persevering and creating something really cool and memorable and impactful with it. And that's what I try to do with my comedy, and that's what I try to help other women do. And that's like, it's my main goal in comedy now, for real, is to make sure that women know their stories matter.
And to own them. Don't let anybody else own them.
No.
Own
your own stuff.
I'm so proud of you. I really am. I'm
Thank
so
you, girl.
lucky to know you, and I'm excited.
Same.
Listen, you're such a badass. Be on the show anytime. Seriously, we could probably talk for another 3 hours.
Yeah, no, we
The clock
literally
says we have
can.
4 minutes, so
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to wrap this one up. But no, seriously, I appreciate you sharing more of your story. And
girl, look, I'm proud of you, because it is so easy to stay in a system, you know, but it's quite another thing to like go out on a limb and bet on yourself.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because it's not easy. And there's so many minutes where you're like, what am I doing? And did I make the wrong choice? And if I can just be like that, like lighthouse for you, because I know sometimes you're like, I've seen you on social where you're like, I don't know about this. If I can just be that lighthouse for you, like, it's gonna happen.
thank you.
You know what I mean? Like, you've created an awesome thing here, and this is just the beginning, you know? It's just being able to like stand in your power and own all of it. That's like the authenticity is the thing that's going to take you the furthest.
Yeah.
And I'm just so proud of you as a friend.
Thank you. Oh my God.
I'm on my moon cycle right now, so I'm like emotional over here.
Emotional.
And you just, your strength, it shows so much. And I know so many women are having their mind changed by your experience. And so thank you for being open and just wanting to help other women. You really are truly a girl's girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your money is where your mouth is. And we
Every
see
time.
that, and everyone sees that.
Every time you can watch a girl, don't look for the girl that's like, I am a girl's girl. Look at the girl that owns that walks that walk.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. It was
course.
really
Thank you for
great
being here.
conversation.
Before we go, if anyone wants to come and see you live,
You can go to my Instagram, my link in bio. It has a place that you can sign up to get tour notifications. That's like the number one place that you can find me, because it honestly, it helps show me where people want to see me.
Right.
So that I can plan a more effective tour.
literally thought you said LinkedIn bio. I'm like, people are doing that now. You're putting your tour dates on LinkedIn.
No. There's a link in my
My LinkedIn bio.
But
I was
also,
like,
you should.
LinkedIn.
but yeah, that's the number one thing I'm asking people to do is please sign up to see me tour, because comedy has completely saved my life. And I know, like, I got my first like true standing ovation the other day in La Jolla talking about this new stuff, and I know I'm on to something special.
Yes.
But also it was crazy because I'm so bad with social cues. I thought people were getting up to leave really fast. So I was like walking off the stage, and this lady was like, no, Jen, they're standing for you. And I was like,
my gosh.
Oh, maybe
I was
this
like,
could turn into a special.
my bad,
Sounds
guys.
like it.
Yeah, no, I do feel like the stuff that people are going to watch me put up on stage in the next 6 to 8 months is going to end up being my special.
Well, I
So
can't wait.
please come out and see me. I also have a podcast with my buddy Eddie called Not Today, as in Not Today Satan.
Yes.
And we talk about all kinds of like mental health stuff and just like the experiences we all go through. And I truly love doing that with like my best friend.
Yes.
You know? So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys always for watching and joining us for these important conversations with people that we love. Make sure you guys come back every single Monday. Thanks again, Jen, and we'll see you next time.
thanks, ladies.
See ya.